Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me here to testify. My name is Chris Russo. I'm the president of Texans for Strong Borders. We are a nonprofit organization that seeks to educate the public and policyholders about solutions to border security and immigration policy that are in the best interest of citizens. And although my work specifically is focused on the state of Texas, I think that the nature of this crisis creates a situation where every state is now a border state, because we've had, since January 2021, about 7 million nationwide encounters, and then about 1.7 million, and actually probably more than that, known gotaways. That doesn't include the number of unknown gotaways that were never detected crossing the border. And these people are not staying in the border region. They're going from the border region and being transported all over the country, whether by NGOs that contract with the Department of Homeland Security or through criminal organizations that participate in things like forced labor agreements, human trafficking, and those sorts of things. And so what my focus is for this committee is basically, what can the state of Idaho do to help solve this crisis in a way that involves its involvement with the state of Texas specifically. So right now, the Biden administration has shown that they basically have no intention of fully enforcing federal immigration law. And that's why you've seen so many people coming as a response to this policy. Of course, there's been various moratoriums on deportation that have been struck down by the courts, and there have been a series of humanitarian parole schemes that have no basis in statute, and you've had about 500,000 people come into the country under those auspices. And so in light of that, our contention and the state of Texas's contention in their lawsuit with the Biden administration that's ongoing over this buoy barrier in Eagle Pass is that the federal government is in violation of its commitment to the states under Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. And that is what guarantees states' security against invasion. And because of the nature of this crisis, I think it's fair to call it an invasion. Every single person who's coming across the southern border is in some way paying off these narco-terrorist cartels that control every single mile of border. And these payments are not what they used to be. They're not the $200 payment to a coyote to be led across the border and then dropped off somewhere in the border region. These are payments in the thousands of dollars, and they're according to country of origin, typically. And so in light of that, and in light of the fact that they control large swaths of territory in northern Mexico, I think it's fair to say that this really is an invasion. This is not a small-time criminal syndicate. This is a $20 billion economy based on human smuggling. And they are making more money now off of human smuggling than off of drug smuggling, which is something that's really unique to this crisis that we find ourselves in. So what is the response of the states in light of this failure to uphold its duty, or the federal government to uphold its duty to the states to protect the borders? There is a solution that we've pursued and the state of Texas has pursued under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution. And that states that no state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty on tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. And I will argue that both of those criteria have been met. There is an actual invasion of the southern border that's coordinated by these narco-terrorist cartels, and it's creating a situation for the state of Texas that puts us in imminent danger that will not admit of delay. The impacts have been extreme, and it's not just to the residents who, you have many ranchers in the border region who have their fences cut, who feel unsafe in their own homes, people who have their windows knocked on at night with guns and things like that. It's also a very, very bad situation for the migrants and eventual illegal aliens themselves. Earlier this year, I talked to a pecan farmer in Eagle Pass, and they own property that goes right up to the border. And they found 44 dead bodies on their small property in just the first, I think, 14 months of the Biden administration. And obviously, since then, there have probably been more found. And so, in light of this situation, what the states could do if they declared an invasion pursuant to Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which Governor Abbott of Texas has said he's done, is actually begin a posture of enforcement that is not just the support and observe posture that was previously the mission of the state of Texas. So starting with the night of Title 42 expiring back in May, you had an operation just outside of Brownsville, Texas, where for the first time, personnel from the state of Texas were laying concertina wire across the riverbank, and they stood in a line along the riverbank across the river from a very, very large group of migrants who were going to cross, and then once they cross into the United States, we classify them as illegal aliens. Well, all they really did is they said, we're going to stand in a line, and they had megaphones, and they were saying, you're not going to cross here. And that was actually fairly effective. They weren't laying hands on anyone. They weren't arresting anyone because with that response of just having personnel there and a physical barrier to repel, they rerouted around. And now you see the hotspot that a lot of those people came to, which is in Eagle Pass. And in Maverick County, Texas, which is where Eagle Pass is, you've had this limited operation where now you have sort of the state of Texas in conflict from a policy standpoint with Border Patrol, where Border Patrol, their standard operating procedure is to basically let the people come across, and then they will bus them off to a processing facility where, you know, they will make an asylum claim, or they will, you know, get a notice to appear for illegal entry. And often those first court proceedings are far, far into the future, you know, in the late 2020s or even into the 2030s in some cases, especially because of the overloading of the system with asylum claims. And so what the state of Texas has said is this is not acceptable. We can't have all of these people, these millions of people that are coming across, be left to their own recognizance in the United States, because it's an open question, and I think it's a very good question, whether or not these people will even show up to their court dates, you know, 5 years down the road. And so what the state of Texas has done in Maverick County is a similar thing, where they've started erecting barriers, including that buoy barrier we talked about, and putting personnel to actually, when they observe an illegal crossing, send personnel up to the point of the crossing and say, you're not crossing here. You're not going to cross that concertina wire. You need to self-deport and come in through a proper pathway. I actually don't think that that is enough. The fact is that those operations are very limited in scale, somewhat due to personnel issues. And, you know, in the state of Texas, we have a 1,250-mile border with Mexico. And so that's just a tremendous amount of territory to be able to stage an operation where you need personnel observing every mile of border. And so that has come into conflict in the form of a court case with the Biden administration on whether states have the power under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 to defend their own borders. And the way that that affects the state of Idaho is that Idaho has sent state troopers down to the border to be part of Operation Lone Star as part of brush teams. Now, this part of Operation Lone Star is more of it's not actually preventing illegal crossings. What it does is they will take the gotaways, the people who were not apprehended by Border Patrol, and they have brush teams that go through and search for people. Operation Lone Star has people that patrol the highways and look for very obvious signs of human smuggling. And so the state of Idaho has assisted in that capacity. But what I think could be done is under that framework of Article 1, Section 10, you could have an interstate compact with the state of Texas, where the state of Idaho could send personnel on a mission that would put them in a situation where they would actually start repelling illegal crossings. And even where that's being done in a limited way, I think you could have a deterrent factor get built up where you could affect the ultimate outcome, which is you want to lower those record numbers of people who are coming across our southern border illegally. You know, Idaho is not on the southern border, obviously, but it still has impacts from illegal immigration. There was a 2023 study by the Federation on American Immigration Reform, or FAIR, that estimated that Idaho has a population of approximately 62,000 illegal aliens. And between the illegal aliens and their children, between the federal tax outlays of Idaho citizens and then the state budget in terms of health care and education, that the state of Idaho's fiscal impact is approximately $400 million annually from illegal immigration. That is not a small number whatsoever. And so what I would say is that what the state of Idaho can do to help combat this crisis is not only, like I said, assist with Texas's mission, which is actually going to go to repelling crossings, as opposed to the federal mission, which, as I stated earlier, is more of observe and report. But they could also take some policy, they could enact some policies to reduce illegal presence in the state. One of the most effective tools that they can use to do that is what's called the E-Verify system. Now, the E-Verify system is for employers. It's an opt-in system, and what it does is when a new employee fills out their I-9 form upon hiring, that I-9 form is uploaded by the employer to the E-Verify portal system, which cross-checks the information on that I-9 versus the Social Security Administration database to make sure that the person isn't using a fake Social Security number or something like that. In states that have implemented mandatory E-Verify, like Mississippi and Alabama, they've seen up to a 50% reduction in their projected illegal labor in the state, and that could have a massive impact. There are obviously a lot of concerns about people that utilize illegal labor and the impacts to their businesses, but I would argue that in light of the fiscal impact of illegal immigration, that there is a real policy discussion to be had, whether or not you guys think that that's the right policy solution to your state. The other thing is addressing taxpayer subsidies to illegal aliens, which is something that I think every state needs to take a look at, especially in light of the magnitude of the crisis that's unfolding and the millions of people that are coming across our border. So thank you for the time.